Why does it seem like older women can be just as creepy as older men, but nobody calls them out for it? Like, I'll get felt up by older women more than I'd like. They'll grab my arms and shoulders for a little too long. One time a distant family member grabbed my shoulders, rubbed them from the top of my arm all the way down to my forearms in a very aggressive manner that would make no sense in any context. They'll also be way less sly about showing attention to me and don't respect personal space, standing way too close. I'm not bragging, of course, because these are older women that I'm not interested in at all. But, if an older man did this stuff, he would be called a creep and harassed by everyone. In my theory, older women are better at getting away with light harassment while older men are more likely, in more rare cases, to do something that's actually creepy, like catcall a woman or randomly offer to a younger lady. But most older men will keep things very curt and respectful between younger ladies, even if they have been drinking.
I play the bagpipes, proper kilt and everything. About twice a year some middle-aged woman gets a little inappropriate. One time at a crowded bar, lady went as far as lifting my kilt and looking up it. I raised my voice at her about what if it was you and such. She was taken aback and didn't think I was persistent and made her buy me a drink. Call them out on the spot. I hate to say it, but if you want people to call it out, start with yourself. Kind of, be the change you want to see. You don't have to make a scene, but you can establish boundaries.
I used to work in a grocery store. My co-worker was 17, he was about 6 feet 3 inches and in fairness, looked like a completely grown man. This older lady in her 70s, walked up to him, grabbed his arm and told him if I was young again, I'd be all over you. He tells the lady he's 17, she continues to hold onto his arm and make suggestions to him. Literally everyone saw. Everyone from the customers, to the mangers, to the baggers, to the other checkers, and not one person said went and talked to the guy in the break room, and he's visibly shook up. His voice is cracking a bit, so I ask him what's up. Basically tells me that he's disappointed that nobody seemed to give a that someone came up and assaulted him in front of everyone and nobody blinked an eye.
I was out to dinner with a couple female colleagues last week. For context, I'm 35F, they are 40F, and 65F. And there was a server, couldn't have been more than 18-19, and they kept saying how cute he was and what a nice butt he had and how I should talk to him more so he hangs around longer, and I work with kids so it made me feel uncomfortable. I told them he is young enough to be our kid and how it felt yucky to objectify him, and that stopped them in their tracks.
As a male nurse, yes, older women say and do too and think they can get away with it. I would just tell them I'm a professional here to take care of them. I won't tolerate such behavior, and they wouldn't tolerate the same behavior of an older man to a young female nurse.
I had a woman friend that kept making Mrs. Robinson jokes, from The Graduate to a 15-year kid. I wonder what people would think if I made similar ones about their daughter.
Call them out on it. I used to find when creepy older men would touch me, no one would notice or would assume I was okay with it because I didn't react or call it out myself. So I had to start being more vocal, even though I used to be really shy and hate drawing attention. I saw a friend getting harassed by an older woman, and I made the exact same mistake others did, where I didn't know if I should intervene or say anything because he didn't respond in a way that showed me he wasn't. I was trying to figure out if he was interested in her, and was worried he'd get annoyed that I'd intervened if he was interested. Later on he mentioned she was in his space and didn't know how to react. Next time, call it out and be firm. Ask them to stop touching you or tell them they're in your personal space if they keep ignoring your signals to do so. The women who do this rely on the same tactics. They expect you not to call it out, and to be able to say that you seemed receptive to their advances and made a mistake. I hate that they're doing it, especially when it comes from the women who have faced harassment. They know exactly how it feels, and they're doing it to men.
The world is full of double standards, unfortunately.
I've had older women literally grab my and think it's hilarious. Double standards.
Same with me. One time I told my GF, I think I got sexually harassed but not the cool kind. I was fixing a woman manager's computer, and she grabbed my butt and pushed me forward so I can have a closer look. Then my friend's mom slapped me in my. Then another woman started feeling me up all around my torso after yoga, using her hands to illustrate where she aches by running her hand up and down my individual women in their 50s and 60s. Bless their hearts though, you cheeky monkey. They were so unassuming and you'd never expect it from them.
Men have been raised to suffer in silence for generations for lots of reasons both, and are changing, though, and there's more room in the collective conversation for male boundaries than ever. Suggestion to young men caught in predatory behavior is to call it out in the moment, the way young women do. There's no shame in anyone saying you need to back off or I'm gonna have you thrown out on your old when it's needed.
For you, as a woman mostly lurker who has been sexually harassed by an older man, in public, among friends, and no one did a thing about it's wrong when older women do that to you, and I agree with the comments that say you should call it out when you experience or see it. I wish I'd said something to the guy who did it to me, or that anyone else had.
FR not even older woman, just woman in general. I've had my grabbed 3 times at the place I work at, twice by the same person. And I reported them and my boss just said I'm sorry and nothing happened. They both quit after I told all the other guys what happened, and the guys always called them names until they quit.
Why are you not calling them out? That's gross, and my brother reported a woman to his HR. She's gone and he didn't put up with that. No one should.
Power dynamics and perception. If women were larger or stronger than you, and you were taught your whole life that every woman is a potential, you would likely feel different in those interactions.
Well, I blame this all started with American Pie, where an older woman sleeps with a high school student. And not a single person bats an dude, she's in her late 40s and you're 17, no.
But most older men will keep things very curt and respectful between younger ladies. This statement isn't factual at all. Older men prey on younger women all the time and constantly sexualize them. I agree with you that lots of older women are creepy too and do the same thing. It's a shame men feel like they can't speak out about this problem.
This is one of those double standards that is frustrating, but it exists for a reason. Older women are bolder with their creepiness, but for the most part they aren't as dangerous as men are to women. How often is the touchy-feely crude 60-yo a danger to a 30-yo man? Switch the genders and the numbers go. The power dynamics are a large part of I call them out in my own way if they're too much though. Nobody is stopping you from doing the same.
Like what Gaston does at Disney.
Yep, happened to me when I wore a kilt to the work Christmas and put my head up her skirt. I'd be lucky if the worst that happened was losing my job.
Greater than I persisted and made her buy me a feel like she could have misconstrued this.
Twice a year? I used to wear a kilt for nights out, and if the number of uninvited women's hands that went up there to see if I was wearing it Scottish fashion was only in single figures, it was a slow night. Skeptical, I ended up retiring the kilt as the aggro and annoyance just became too much.
I wore a kilt pretty regularly, and women. Grocery store employee would straight say they were going to wait till I bent over to see if I was wearing anything, or trying to lift the kilt. I wore it to one of my wife's Christmas parties and a coworker asked what I was wearing under it. It's also amazing the amount of women that get offended when they ask what I'm wearing under my kilt and I answer you first or something like it isn't the exact same question. The most weird is when I answer boots and socks to what's under your kilt, but because it's not an answer they were looking for they get upset that I didn't answer the question. Not just middle-aged women.
100% this. Calling it out starts with you. Women have the luxury that in most cases someone will automatically sympathize with them and side with them. As a man, no one is coming to save you unless you're already acting on it. Hope that woman was really embarrassed.
100% women have to call this out also. There's no magic creep police monitoring when some creepy man is leering at a young girl. Even the girl would need to speak up first for the crowd to even notice what's going on. I was younger, I'd stay silent, uncomfortable, and victimized. No one rushed to my defense. Now that I'm older, I feel more empowered to report the guy on the train, or stating when someone has crossed my eyes. Not men versus women. This is creeps versus people they think are easy targets. The only solution is to be the tough target that calls them out and publicly shames this behavior.
As a fellow piper, I feel your pain. I started playing when I was 17, and the number of times that women old enough to be my mother pulled like that was horrifying. I do think, to Op's point, that some portion of it, outside of the social ways we treat men and women, is that uncomfortable as I'd feel. I don't think I ever really felt physically threatened, and I'm not saying that makes it okay by any stretch, but on several occasions I did have the thought that if this lady gives me trouble, I can kick her in the face with my gillies, whereas even an old man might be able to physically injure a young woman easily.
Greater than kind of, be the change you want to see. Yeah, people call out creepy men because women made a concerted effort to call out creepy men until the culture changed enough that everyone started calling out creepy men. It was an uphill battle for decades. Men will also have to fight for the things they want to see changed. It will be an uphill battle at first for men too, but that's how social change goes, unfortunately.
He's right, and quite young.
Forbid he ever works in a hospital in any capacity. I legitimately cannot describe to you how often I get unwanted touching and unwanted comments. I would say 3 shifts a week minimum. And it's just as often the staff as it is the patients.
I remember when Twilight came out. Taylor Lautner was only 16. And I remember when older women, including my sister-in-law who was 30, was after him and just speaking of what she'd like to do to him. How would that play out if the sexes were reversed?